Good day, everyone. Welcome to Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin, along with my colleague Dan Turrentine, and our special guest tonight, best-selling author, soon to be a New York Times best-selling author, Leland Vittert, author of Born Lucky, anchor on News Nation. Leland will be here to join the two of us to talk you through everything. A lot of news today. A lot of it driven, of course, by the ongoing shutdown of the federal government, and a lot of it driven by the Vice President of the United States, who is tart, hilarious, aggressive. Dan, would you agree with all those? Tart, hilarious,
Yeah,
aggressive?
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
you like to say MAGA with a suburban accent.
Yeah. I used to not have a great appreciation for the Vice President's sense of humor, but boy, do I now. He's funny. He's a funny guy. Anyway, lots of shutdown news, and then also some stuff with the New York mayor's race. We'll tell you about a new poll in Pennsylvania. Quinnipiac did a poll in Pennsylvania, and I'm going to crowdsource this to everybody, whether you're watching here on the Two-Way platform or elsewhere. They poll the unfavorable ratings of the politicians in Pennsylvania. John Fetterman, a Democrat, is substantially more popular with Republicans than he is with Democrats. I don't remember ever seeing that ever. And somebody raised Joe Manchin. I don't even think it was true of Joe Manchin, although sadly, American discrimination against West Virginia extends to, there's almost no polling in West Virginia. So I don't even know I ever saw such a thing, but I doubt it because he was popular with Democrats. Dan.
Mark, the only name that comes to mind is perhaps the God rest his soul, Joe Lieberman at the end. Was he perhaps more popular with Republicans?
But by the end, he was an independent.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, this guy's literally Democrat, and as Dan pointed out in the highly rated and barely seen pregame show, he used to be considered like a left-wing Democrat. Like when he ran for the nomination, he was the left-wing candidate. So we'll dig into that poll a little bit. I'll tell you, if you spent your day trying to say, I'm going to watch every Hakeem Jeffries interview because I'm super interested in Hakeem Jeffries. I'm just going to ride my cable subscriptions and see it all. I don't think you could do it. Every time I look up, the man's on TV. Now, the House isn't in session, and of course, he's trying to get the message out, but he's breaking some sort of record. Not on TV as much as Regis in his heyday, but he's on quite a bit. In any event, Leland will be here in a moment. We'll talk about his new book. We'll talk about the news of the day. It's an incredible book, and you're going to hear me slavishly compliment it because I've read it and it's excellent. And we'll walk through the headlines, and then if you're here on the Two-Way platform, we'd love to take your questions. Raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. If you're watching on X or watching on YouTube, no hand raising, no smack in the chat. Peace, love, and understanding. Presumption of grace to all. Dan, Leland has already been on Megyn Kelly.
Yep.
What's the guy's name with the white hair? Radio host. You know what I'm talking about. Come on. Used to be on MSNBC.
That doesn't narrow it down.
Used to be on MSNBC, Washington Post column. Guys, help me out here.
Oh, Dan Abrams?
Hugh Hewitt. Thank you.
Hugh Hewitt. Yep.
He's done Barry Weiss, Hugh Hewitt, and Megyn Kelly. And that's just like three random ones. My point is we're honored to follow those august appearances with a chance to talk to Leland about his book and about news of the day. So in a moment, all of that and more. Got some interesting poly markets to share with you as well. Let's see here. All right. But a word from one of our sponsors to begin the show. And that is one of our new sponsors we love, Fast Growing Trees. You've heard me tell you this story before. Show up at my doorstep, giant box. Looked like it could have been a very skinny refrigerator. It's like 7-foot tall box. What was inside? A tree. Fast Growing Trees. They will work with you in advance of your order to tell you what kind of trees should you get, indoor, outdoor. They'll ask you where you live, and they'll base it on the climate conditions where you are. Fast Growing Trees. And here's the great news. Perfect time to plant and perfect time to get a discount using the promo code Two-Way. Go to fastgrowingtrees.com. Order yourself a tree or maybe two, or get one for Dan.
Sure.
Fast Growing Trees, fastgrowingtrees.com. It's 15% off your order if you go and use the promo code Two-Way. And again, you'll love the website. If you have any interest in having a tree inside your house, outside, go to the website, fastgrowingtrees.com. You'll be like a kid in a candy store, except they're not candy, they're trees. All right, fastgrowingtrees.com. All right, let's bring in the soon-to-be New York Times best-selling author, Leland Vittert, who is kind enough to regularly host me on his show. Tonight, another O. Henry twist. The tables are turned. I am hosting Mr. Vittert. And whenever I'm on Leland's show on News Nation, he shows a photo of Game Change, the same book you see behind Dan, and he says, that book is what got me involved in political journalism. I'm flattered and touched every time he says it. And now I return the favor to say, Leland's new book, Born Lucky, it's an incredible read. And he and I have been talking about the book and marketing the book for a long time. And I said, it's a two-part process. You got to write a great book, and then you got to sell it like you're, P.T. Barnum or Steve Jobs, whatever. And Leland, you're doing a great job selling your merchandise. You're like death of a salesman, but you're very much alive. So congratulations on the success. Where are we on Amazon as we speak? Last I checked, you were like 18.
We're 21 right now. We took a hit because we sold out for a few hours.
Right.
No one has been more helpful in advice and understanding and gracious mentoring on not only the writing process, but the marketing process, the sales process, than Mark Halperin. So if you ever have a book to sell, he is the man to get advice from. It is unbelievable how 6 months ago he was telling me things to think about that I'm thinking about right now.
Well, honored to be asked to help. And I will say, I've told Leland this, you all think I have various talents, flattered that you might think so. It's literally the thing I'm best at, selling books. Not writing books necessarily, selling books. I just learned how to do it. And at one point in my life, it was very important to me to be able to sell books. So I learned how to do it. But Leland, so excited for you. We'll talk about the book in detail at the end of the program, but just tell people what the book is about.
Very briefly, the book is about my father's and my journey after I was diagnosed with autism, and his desire and quest to adapt me to the world rather than the world to me. And it is hope for every parent who has a kid who's suffering, not just with autism, not just with ADHD or anxiety, but just the bullying and the difficulties of growing up, for example, to give them real hope that my dad didn't have when I was diagnosed and back in that little medical office building that everybody's been in the waiting room with old magazines and stale coffee, when the woman looked at my dad and said, "We don't know what's going on inside his head." And my dad said, "What can we do?" And she said, "Not much." And this is to give every parent that hope that he didn't have.
So luckily, the two-way community, thanks to the unfortunate assassination of Charlie Kirk, you've all seen me cry quite a bit lately. Leland's book makes me cry because it's a story about autism and grappling with that, which is much in the news. And I'd recommend the book just based on that. But the story of what his family did, it's incredible. Just an incredible story.
Thank you.
And as a parent, think about the love your dad showed for you and his determination, and then your determination to go from someone written off by some of your teachers to now hosting a show, nightly show on a big cable network and writing a best-selling book. It's quite something. So congratulations to the book. Congratulations to you and your family. We'll talk more about the book at the end, but couldn't be prouder of you for what you've done. All right, let's run through some of the news. Again, the shutdown continues. There was a test vote in the Senate this morning. Same three Democrats who voted yesterday on the morning meeting. We had speculated about a dozen or so, maybe 10 additional Democrats who might vote yes, but so far none of them did. So there's rumblings about layoffs. There were some moves made by the president today to cut government spending. But I would say in the main, not much happened except a lot of taunting by Vice President in particular. So let's take a look. First, do we have number one? Number one, do we have that? I know we had a little bit of a technical issue. Do we have number one here?
Yes, we do.
Okay, here's number one. There's a headline from the Washington Post. A lot of discussion about Donald Trump's role. Trump administration seeks to exert control over government shutdown. Officials canceled projects in Democratic states, posted partisan messages on government websites, and warned that federal layoffs will begin soon. Undercovered story. This is where I want to, Dan, you first and then Leland. Undercovered story. This Trump operation during the campaign and now in the government, besides the fact that they think the Hatch Act is for sissies, they're so aggressive on media, social media, cable, like like they are student body right in a way that the Democratic Party hasn't been since Barack Obama's operation, as far as I can tell. So, Dan, am I right that your party, without the White House, but also without the vast network of MAGA, is really flooding the zone with spin, information, jibes, taunts, etc.?
Yeah, no, it's like watching the varsity in college play a middle school team. I mean, they are completely coordinated, even out of offices emails. Some departments have been told in those messages to put that they are out of office because Democrats shut the government down. I mean, that's how across the board they have thought about teeing this up. And what you talked about Hakeem Jeffries, is Democrats, when they're being interviewed, are spending part of their time messaging on the substance, part of the time defending themselves and kind of explaining away and lashing out at the attacks. Whereas, I'm sure we may show it, J.D. Vance and others are kind of laughing at the Democrats. I found it almost hard to watch the way they're taunting Chuck Schumer, that you're only in this corner because you're afraid of your base. You're afraid of an AOC primary. And of course, the worst jokes are the ones that are true. So it's hard to watch the Democrats flail away.
Leland, do you agree that this is a mismatch?
Yeah, I think it's a mismatch, but I think it's a mismatch because Democrats have gotten used to having many of the institutions playing along. And now that it's sort of a fair fight and they're fighting against Republicans who are playing by their rules, they kind of don't know what to do. And I don't see this as much as Republicans all of a sudden sort of running roughshod over Democrats, as Democrats and Republicans now using some of the same tactics that Democrats used against them. And Democrats no longer having as much of the media establishment and institutions to protect them, and Republicans having way more options for them and willing to destroy more norms. Sort of the difference at all between Trump 1.0 and Trump 2.0 is that Trump 2.0, the administration doesn't care about norms anymore. So therefore, yeah, it is, I think, caught Democrats significantly by surprise how their messaging of we're fighting for healthcare, this is going to be great, has not sort of stuck and resonated, and now they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I'll say two things I've said before, but they're super important, I think, and they're applicable to the moment. Number one, people on the left say to me all the time, why do you say dominant media? Fox News is so powerful that, there's all this conservative media. There is, but it's still not the same as what the liberals have. And the Republicans are not complacent about it. The Republicans don't say, well, we've got Fox News and Hugh Hewitt, so we don't need to develop our own apparatus on social, et cetera. They don't. They're very aggressive. And then number two, it is still the case. This may literally be the biggest story going on in the Democratic Party right now because of the power of media. They still feel like their home court advantage is so powerful. They don't think about this explicitly, but it's like, well, we still have George Stephanopoulos and we still have MSNBC. We don't really need to develop our own stuff. Again, they're not saying that actively, but I guarantee you the complacency in the party is they still think, well, if George Stephanopoulos is on our side, we're reaching everybody. We're fine.
Yeah. To that point, though,
yeah, go ahead.
The speaker was on with Stephanopoulos this morning, and I thought Mike Johnson started hitting back in a way that even surprised Stephanopoulos. It does not, the way Republicans are fighting now is different. And I think frankly, also, this is the first time that there's been a government shutdown where it was Democrats who wanted to shut things down because they wanted something. And I think just trying to flip the script of saying, we're shutting things down because we want something, that doesn't fly with the American people. Republicans learned that back in 2018. And I don't think Democrats took note.
Dan, I don't like to make every show a media show, but I just think the media is so important in the shutdown, right? It always is, right? So two things are happening. Number one, the press is not siding with the Democrats. And most of the media says, for the reason Leland just said, the Republicans are the ones trying to keep the government open without conditions. And that's usually the side that wins. But the other thing is this issue of illegal, whether this is about health care for people in the country illegally, the press really isn't adjudicating it. Stephanopoulos challenged it, I hear from him every minute. The Democrats are really frustrated. The press isn't saying the Republicans are lying and therefore we should win the shutdown. Dan.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, the other part of this is the Republican message discipline is fantastic, and some of that is you get out of line and you will hear about it basically instantly. But you're right, and this goes to the fact that the Democrats, not just advocating for extending the ACA credits, but by putting in rolling back all these parts of the big beautiful bill, they walked into a trap there because there were provisions on immigration, on immigrants and illegals. Some of it you could say was duplicative because it was already illegal. But when the Democrats said we want to undo it, they had them. And so the media it's been pointed out to them by Republicans, like, see, here's the text. To your point, they're putting it on the table and the Democrats are hemming and hawing.
Yeah. All right. I want to polymarket one thing. Our partners at Polymarket, as you know, a betting market where people can go on and wager on all sorts of things, on odds on weather and sports, etc. But they do politics. And here's a Polymarket. Will Donald Trump meet with Chuck Schumer by October 3rd, which is 2 days from now? Again, if this is not going to be settled by Senate Democrats just naturally starting to vote to open up the government, perhaps a Schumer-Trump meeting will do it. And as you can see, it's down over the course of the day, 11% say yes, 11% odds, I should say, 11% odds that there'll be a Schumer-Trump meeting. Leland, does that seem low to you? Do you forecast there could be such a meeting, or does 11% odds seem right?
I think this gets resolved sort of by the individual votes. I think you were really smart, Mark, this morning to go by Democrat, who can cave and who might cave. And you think about John Ossoff, for example, in Georgia and the pressure he's facing and others. That to me is where the sort of inflection point is going to be in this. It doesn't seem like Schumer, who at least so far has misjudged this, number one, but number two, Schumer's at risk from the left, as I can tell. He's worried about an AOC primary, and he needs to show the base that he's fighting, whereas somebody like John Ossoff, senator from Georgia, needs to show the middle that he can compromise. So just looking at that, I think that exactly what you pointed out this morning is the place to be watching.
Yeah, Dan, what are your thoughts on the same question? Do we think this is going to be settled just by the peeling off of Democratic senators, or could you see a meeting between Schumer and the president?
I don't think there'll be a meeting, but I think it'll be like Leland said, kind of the bottom up, and it'll be Schumer to Thune that will ultimately kind of cut this deal or not object to the deal.
Right.
It will kind of end up going. But I actually think you can already see the contours. They're going to have some extension, and there's going to be an agreement to hold a vote on the Obamacare extension with some provisions that Republicans can say, we improved the program.
Right. Okay. Very well said. Here's someone who, although Leland's never been elected to the United States Senate or vice president, here's another political analyst who agrees with Leland on Chuck Schumer being afraid of a primary challenge. Here's political analyst J.D. Vance, number 8, please.
It's hard to watch.
So the president's been posting some images of Leader Jeffries and Senator Schumer.
I saw
recently. You've said that you're interested in good faith negotiations with these leaders, but what message does that send? Is it helpful to
I think
post
this is
pictures
number.
of
I think this is
Leader
number
Jeffries in a
6.
sombrero if you're trying to have good faith talks with him?
Oh, I think it's funny. The president's joking, and we're having a good time. You can negotiate in good faith while also poking a little bit of fun at some of the absurdities of the Democrats' positions, and even poking some fun at the absurdity of the Democrats themselves. I mean, I'll tell Hakeem Jeffries right now, I make this solemn promise to you that if you help us reopen the government, the sombrero memes will stop. And I've talked to the president of the United States about that. Now,
very, very funny. I was going to play that one too, but please play number 8 now, the one about Schumer.
I'm sorry, Mark, we don't have that one loaded.
All right, we don't have that. And anyway, he said what was already said by Leland, that President or Chuck Schumer is worried about a primary challenge. Let's go.
And several Republicans said that today.
Yeah. Do we have number 12? Let me ask about that before I call for it. Number 12. Do we have number 12?
It's
All right,
Wednesday.
Is there Jeopardy
Please
music?
stand
I would be
by.
remiss if I didn't ask you that as of the second we walked out here,
This is Meghan
the
McCain with
government
Mike
is
Pence.
officially shut down. According to New York Times Siena poll, 65% of voters say Democrats should not shut the government down if their demands are not met. It's wildly unpopular. What do you make of what's happening, and what do you say to people who are wildly frustrated? And average people can't just say, I'm not coming to work, and so I'm shutting my work down. And, you know, people really, really are very angry.
Well, we went through a long government shutdown during our administration when I was serving as vice president. And it was over the issue of border security and border funding. We ultimately resolved the issue separately and reopened the government. But it was on a policy issue, on an issue that was affecting people across the country. It's one of the things I really commend the new Trump administration for, is ending the crisis at our southern border. But I think what's different about this time is that now the argument is not over one party wanting to spend more and another party wanting to cut spending, which were always debates that I welcomed. But rather, it's now the difference between the Republican Party that wants to add $2 trillion to the national debt and the Democratic Party that wants to add $3 trillion to the national debt. And so for me, it's disappointing to see that people couldn't find a way to move forward, continue to fund vital programs that millions of Americans depend upon. But it's also frustrating that the consensus in Washington, D.C. Seems to be that we're going to do nothing about the national debt.
We all know Donald Trump doesn't care about the national debt. He thinks that the president who solves that will be a sucker, and it's not going to be him. But Dan, what do you make of the fact that that question is largely absent from this conversation, where it's normally front and center?
Well, I think it's part of Donald Trump's remaking of the Republican Party. It is more of a socially conservative and fiscally liberal party now. I mean, go back to the start of this. Trump's open to a healthcare deal, right? Trump's talking about an RX prescription drug deal with his name on it. 10 years ago, close your eyes, and I can't fathom a Republican, proposing that. They would say it was communism. So the world's changed.
Yeah. All right. I want to run through 3 more stories real quick. Then we're going to get to your questions. Please raise your hand if you want to get in on the conversation. You're here on the two-way platform. Supreme Court today said Lisa Cook can stay on the Fed through at least January, when they're going to hear arguments about the president's position that he can fire her. That means she'll be on the Fed for the 2 upcoming votes on rate cuts. And we'll see what happens in January. Leland, does this say anything to you about, it's one of the few times the president's lost one of these emergency appeals? As a New York Times headline, Supreme Court allows Lisa Cook to remain at Fed for now. The justice deferred a decision on the president's efforts to oust Ms. Cook and instead set oral arguments in the case for January. Is this a tea leaf that says maybe he's going to start losing the Supreme Court, or is this just a one-off?
Well, good luck predicting the Supreme Court, right? Predict the future in the Middle East or try to predict the Supreme Court, you'll be made a fool. But I love that headline because it was the first time I've seen the New York Times refer to the Supreme Court just as the Supreme Court, not as the Trump-controlled Supreme Court or the very conservative or the MAGA Supreme Court. And I think it's telling that when the court rebukes Donald Trump and Donald Trump goes and abides by the court order, which is exactly how the checks and balances system in America is supposed to work, there's no acknowledgement that that's the way America is supposed to work. And I think that is quite encouraging for all those who say that Trump is somehow becoming some unitary executive with unchecked power.
Well said. All right. I mentioned the Quinnipiac poll at the top. 60% approval rating for Governor Shapiro. Number 15, if we have it. 60% approval rating, easily beating the people most discussed as potential running rivals for him for the re-election in 2026. And head-to-head with J.D. Vance, he's 10 ahead. I'm not sure that's good or bad. But, Dan, we've kind of seen a downgrade of Shapiro being discussed. I thought for a long time he would be a first-tier candidate. He's rarely discussed that way. I still think he's got some weaknesses and a lot of strengths. But 60%, does that seem to suggest to you formidable to be the nominee and be a general election candidate?
Absolutely. I mean, Pennsylvania is still perhaps the ultimate swing state. And we can say, okay, the JD Vance poll doesn't mean too much. I'd rather be up 10 than down 10. I mean, good luck trying to sell your candidacy if you're trailing in your home state, like John Edwards was, years ago. The thing about Shapiro that remains a mystery is he is laying in the weeds. And when he is attacked, going back to the Kamala Harris VP nomination, he doesn't respond. Now, that may be why he's at 60%, because he hasn't gotten in the mud either within the party or with Republicans. But at some point, if you want to start building momentum heading into 2028, win your reelection in 2026, but you got to show the party that you've got some kind of nimble fight in you. And he has not yet shown it.
Yeah. Would you guys consider Mamdani going on The View to be in the lion's den? What's the opposite of the lion's den? Pussycat den? I don't know. Anyway, Mamdani, the front runner to be New York City mayor, went on The View today. And here's a bit of that. Number 17, please. Maybe I shouldn't have called for 17 without asking.
Just one sec, Mark.
We have 17. All right. I'll wait.
Donald Trump's obviously excited for you to be in the race. Even members of your own party, like Leader Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries, both New Yorkers, have been reluctant to endorse you. Kamala Harris gave what I would call sort of a tepid endorsement. Why do you think members of your own party have been hesitant to embrace you at this juncture?
The governor of New York, though, endorsed you.
She did. And what I would say is that Donald Trump is going through the stages of grief. First, it was denial. And he was trying to do everything he could. He was looking at polling. He was calling Cuomo. He was publicly speaking about how he wanted to narrow this race. And he's gotten his first wish. He's gotten Eric Adams out of this race. But now he's going through acceptance. And what I've been really excited by is the endorsements, like you said, Sonny, from not only Governor Hochul, not only from Majority Leader of the State Senate Andrea Stewart-Cousins, Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, Attorney General Tish James that we were just speaking about, but also the fact that I wouldn't be sitting here with you if it was endorsements that made all of the difference. It was the people of the city.
But
okay.
Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries are trying to win the midterms, win back the House and the Senate for Democrats. So why specifically do you think...
You can dump out of this. Let's polymarket this question. Who's going to win? Interesting polymarket. Go ahead and put that up. Despite, Adams getting out of the race, despite he was sure-footed there, but despite some poor interviews that Mamdani's done, I'm looking for my data here. Here we go. Go ahead and put up 18, please. 87%. 87% Mamdani probability of winning according to the wagers on Polymarket, and that is well ahead, of course, of Cuomo. Dan, that's about where you have it, right?
I have it at 80. Yeah, so it's a little higher, but yep.
Yeah. I still think wait for the debates and wait for the negative ads, but he was fine on The View, but even the one conservative there wasn't really pressing him as hard as I think he may well be pressed. All right. Lastly, the markets. Go ahead, 21. Dow and S&P once again. And Trump 2.0, we're all about the rah-rah markets. Leland, do you ever check your 401k on market up days?
No. I don't check it either day. The one thing I think is interesting, though, not necessarily the Trump-related part, but how you have record highs on the first day of a government shutdown. And I think it shows you, Mark, the difference between 2018 and the shutdown that Trump was there. And I think Trump is and Republicans are very buoyed by this, whereas in 2018 they were on the defensive and it was clear they were losing the perception battle or the political battle. This, they feel they're winning it.
Put up number 22 if we have it. Our market report brought to you by our friends at the Bahnsen Group, David Bahnsen. Everything's up. All the market indices up today. There you see Dow up, S&P up, NASDAQ up. And a reminder that David Bahnsen of the Bahnsen Group will join us, our community, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, for an exclusive event for two-way community members to ask whatever you want. We're going to focus on the impact of the tariffs, but we'll talk about the macroeconomy in general. David, of course, runs his personal wealth management firm and very, very well aware of thinking about the markets and investment. And of course, Dividend Cafe, David's newsletter. To subscribe to David's free newsletter, read it every day as I do, and to register to join us Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern time, October 3rd, go to twoway.tv/TBG to be part of that. All right. in a moment, we're going to bring you all in. We're going to ask you to ask whatever you want of our great guest, Leland Vittert, author, anchor, son, brother, great American, author of Born Lucky, soon to be a New York Times bestselling author, I promise you, and Dan. So we'll get to that in a minute. So again, if you're here on the two-way platform, you want to be in on the conversation, I recommend you raise your hand now so you can get in. But before that, one more word for one more sponsor, which is Cozy Earth. Cozy Earth, longtime sponsor of this program. Why? Because they know how much you all love the Cozy Earth products, the sheets, the bedding, the shirts. Wore a shirt last night. Slept like a baby. Not the John McCain. You know the old John McCain joke? Slept like a baby. Woke up every 2 hours crying. No, I didn't sleep like that kind of baby. I slept like the baby that just slept through the night. And then the pants. I'm wearing the pants right now. You can't see it. I went out earlier today, Greenwich Village, dirtiest place in New York City. Wore these pants, fit right in with kids. I went to an opium den. Fine. It was minute this show ends, I'm going to East Side to a fancy neighborhood at a dinner where the entrees are $45. I will wear the same pants, ladies and gentlemen, because you can wear these anywhere and they're comfortable. Go to cozyearth.com right now. You can save. Dan, you know how much you can save?
20%.
How much? 40%.
40%.
40% off your entire order. Go to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code two-way to save on everything. Thank you for your attention to this matter. All right, here come folks to ask about whatever they want for Leland and for Dan. And we start, as we do each and every night, with Mitchell. Just kidding. Mitchell, welcome in. Thank you for being here. Unmute. Tell folks who don't know where you are and what's on your mind for Leland and for Dan.
Thank you for having me. I'm in Southern Arizona, and I had two things I wanted to talk about briefly. One is more of like a FOII kind of thing with the shutdown, and that is that I live in Arizona, which is a swing state, and the primary group that the shutdown is going to affect for my state is going to be the seniors who have moved here, which our population of over 65 has been increasing as California has become pricing seniors out of its market effectively. A lot of them have retired and moved out here. And so that vote is the one that the shutdown is going to be affecting first and foremost for my state in particular. And then I have totally forgotten my second thing.
Okay, so, well, let's get reaction to that. Leland and then Dan. Leland.
Look, I think the issue of how it affects each subgroup differently does matter, and you're right, in different states that it affects all these subgroups differently, and it's going to affect, for example, government workers in states that have high government worker populations probably the most. I'd almost be thinking right now about Virginia with the governor's race coming up. In terms of sort of how Democrats are looked at about that, and how Abigail Spanberger is going to deal with government shutdown, and how she's going to message about Democrats in Congress, because she used to be one. That's kind of where I would be looking for it. I don't know, and Mark and Dan can weigh in more than I can, but I think that it's less about an effect in the midterms right now as it is just about an effect in terms of political power, because there's so much time between now and the midterms, number one. But number two, probably the worst thing for Democrats, and I think for seniors, where this may be an even bigger issue that you point out, Mitchell, is that seniors are the most price sensitive when it comes to rising prices in the economy. And this takes all the wind out of Democrats' sails for being able to message on that.
Dan.
Yeah, the administration also today announced that Social Security checks will continue to go out. And that, I think, was a big, they do not want that disrupted. But Arizona has military. Arizona has state universities that are very prominent. They've got the energy sector. They announced today that they're going to cut some of these clean energy provisions. So Arizona is a big state. Ruben Gallego is somebody that I would watch to potentially cut a deal for the reasons that you just described.
Yeah. Mitchell, if you remember your second question and it's short, ask it now. Otherwise, blow us a kiss and say goodnight.
I was just going to comment on how the talking points for the two sides on the shutdown, as far as the illegal immigrant component of healthcare, is sort of frustrating, because a lot of it is based on perception, in that a lot of people who Republicans think of as being illegal immigrants, who are people who came over here but then registered as asylum seekers that are in the system somewhere, do qualify